Hi everybody, Matty here from BDC TV. We've got a great episode of On the Sofa With coming your way. Before we do, I'm going to ask you to please check out all of our social media. You can find all of the links in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, BDC TV. Anyway, on with the show. It gives me great pleasure to welcome one of our own, the Marching Division Manager. It's Stu Warmington. How you doing, Stu?
Great. It's nice to be on the other side for a change. So,
Well, I think that's probably the first time you've ever sat on that sofa.
It is, yeah. I see everybody else on it, but yeah, it's nice to be on myself.
Is it as comfortable as this one?
Not really, no.
So, look, it's great to be here. I think you're the first person from inside the factory that I've spoke to. So I know you do all the interviews for the marching and the pipe band side of things. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into some nitty gritty.
Well, let's see what we come up with then.
So look, I think it's a good place to start is at the beginning. Where did drumming start for you?
Wow. So it's quite easily, I've said this before, but I was brainwashed from a young child. Definitely. My father was a drum major in the parachute regiment and then the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. So any parades he went to, I was there. Obviously, I'd just go by myself with him, and he'd either stick me in the police car that was leading the parade, or in one of the vehicles at the back. So I was exposed to it from quite a young age. And not only was he in the being a drum major, but used to teach youth organisations as well, whether it be Girls Brigade, Boys Brigade, Army Cadets, Sea Cadets. So I used to go there as well. So from a young age, it was just there constantly. He was a big vinyl collector, so he had all the records. And I remember him telling me, I could only have been about 6. You had the, I think it was the Troop and the Colour on. Listen to it. He went, I can tell you what foot they're on. And obviously this is a vinyl. I'm thinking, how do you know this? And it's all about phrasing. Obviously, the start of a phrase is always left foot. But I remember that, and obviously I picked up on that at such a young age. So yeah, I was exposed to it for quite a young age, and then obviously I joined the Marine Cadets, and then I always wanted to be in the Royal Marines Band because they're the only ones that it was the white helmets that they had and the stick work that they do, and that which is synonymous to them, and nobody else does it quite like how they do it. So yeah, that was it. And I went to join the Royal Marines, and there just happens to be there was a recruiting gap. They just made a load of redundancies, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I waited 6 years and then joined the Marines and did that for the next 22 years, traveling the world.
Just as easy as that, summed up like that.
Yeah.
Well, I have to ask, right, the Marine Cadets, is that a way into the Marines? Obviously, you're not guaranteed, but does that help?
It gives you a better understanding. So obviously you've got the Air Cadets, which is more associated with the Royal Air Force. You've got the Army Cadets, which is associated with all the different regiments within the British Army. And then you get the Sea Cadets, which, is more focused on like the Royal Navy side of it. But under that umbrella, you get the Marine Cadets. So, you wear the same uniforms, you wear the same cap badges, you learn the history. So generally it's a bit of it's not guaranteed, but if you do join one of these youth organisations, you follow that path into whatever.
Yeah. Is it taken into consideration when you apply, or does that not come into it?
No, I don't think. They'll look at it. Yeah. They'll understand. It all depends on what you've done within the cadets itself. You can really excel, or you can just bimble along, and But it does make a difference, because you understand the job you're about to go into. Where if some of these military bands recruit straight from universities. They're not used to getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and sitting on a coach for 6 hours to go and play a 10-minute gig and then do the same in reverse. Yeah. Where if you get people who are used to doing that, they understand that once you've done your training, that's the job. You do get up at 4 in the morning, you do sit in a coach for 6 hours, and then you go and perform for 10 minutes, and then get on the coach again. So
has snare drum always been your thing, or have you sort of wandered about?
Not drum set, no. So obviously, I first, like anybody else, picked up some wooden spoons and some pots and pans, and I learnt from a very young age more than one drum was definitely not me. I didn't have the coordination. So even sometimes one drum's a struggle, but so yeah, I knew that's what I want. And because of the Marines and what they do, it was just I was just blinkered all the way through. That was it. There was going to be no other option.
So how did you kind of obviously, most young drummers, it's drum kit, isn't it? You want to play in a rock band with you. So how do you go? I'm guessing you had a teacher early on, because it's obviously a lot of rudiments involved and stuff.
Yes, and my dad. My dad was my teacher. He taught me how to drum, how to play the bugle. Yeah. I was doing last post at funerals when I was about 13, just by myself. Quite a young age to be exposed to something like that. But drumming wise, even though I was in the Marine Cadets, they didn't have a band, so I didn't actually play in a band until I joined the Marines. So it was just all rudiments and stuff like that, and playing along to marches, and so I was sort of isolated for most of my drumming, the very early starts of it until I joined the Marines.
So obviously you have to be a reader, I'd imagine, to get.
So I mean, what I didn't acknowledge here was I used to be in the TA.
Okay.
I've completely skipped that for some reason. So I joined the TA when I was 15 as a junior drummer, and that was great because I was doing the sort of similar job to what I would end up doing in the Royal Marines. So I did that for 6 years, and that got me into the idea of getting up in the morning, polishing my kit, going out doing gigs and getting used to the performance side of it. If there's any sort of performance anxiety and stuff like that was completely gone in them 6 years, because if anything went wrong, it went wrong then. And
sure.
You find out that if it does go wrong, it's not the end of the world. You just blow over and just carry on. So it's having that experience. So I can't remember what the first part of the question was.
Neither can I. So it was about reading.
Oh yeah. So even though I was in the TA and we used to learn marches, it was all done parrot fashion. Like nobody could read music.
Right.
And then just before I joined up, I got a Royal Marines book that they used to learn marches, and that's all music. So I'd started learning a bit myself prior to that, but it wasn't until I joined up that I did learn to read. I wouldn't say I'm the best sight reader in the world, but I can.
Yeah.
I'm all right, because I was slightly different. There's only one line, and it's the notes are up and above and below, and that dictates whether it's a left hand or a right hand.
Totally confusing to me looking at that.
Well, it just means that everybody's playing exactly the same.
Yeah.
Because they know that's definitely a left hand, that's a right hand.
Makes sense.
And the other way of doing it is to put it in a stave and have right, left, and rights over it. But you're then reading the notation, like the rhythm. Then you've got to read the letters.
Yeah.
So you're doing two things at once. So by just doing above and below, you just know instantly whether it's the left or right hand. So it's quicker in the long run.
Yeah, interesting. So I'm always fascinated to know. Obviously, you've joined the Marines as a musician, as a drummer, but you've still got to do the training that everyone else goes through first. Is that right?
To a certain extent, yeah. So you do the first 15 weeks, although be it a little bit simpler than the commando side of it.
Okay.
But yeah, when I joined, it was 15 weeks. So we did that in Portsmouth, and then so that was just like in September up to Christmas, and then after the Christmas, we then start the music training, which is the one bit that you want. You come back, you get given your pith helmet and your drum, your bugle, and so that's the bit that everybody looks forward to. So that first 15 weeks, I think it's 12 weeks now, I'm not 100% sure. It's just getting through it and
day at a time.
Yeah, but I remember my dad saying, "Look, doesn't matter how bad it gets, there's always somebody worse off than you." And it's the same in any walk of life, so you just got to take the rust with the smooth.
Interesting stuff. So obviously you must have had some incredible sort of highlights during the Marines, and some probably things you can't talk about as well. There.
Yeah, obviously we do the green side of it. We go away as whatever, whether it's working in hospitals or on board ship and stuff like that during certain conflicts. But yeah, the other side of it, the music side of it, that's the good part of it. And for me, I just classed it as a paid hobby. I absolutely loved the job. Managed to travel to many places all over the world: Jamaica, America, Russia, South Africa, just all over. I've lost count the amount of times I ended up in Washington DC. It's got to be at least a dozen times. So, but yeah, I mean, we've had some great gigs. I think probably one of the very most memorable ones was the Rugby World Cup opening ceremony. I think it was 2015 at Twickenham, and with the core drums had a big part in that. So there was an opening piece. I don't know if you remember, it had Prince Harry in it with Johnny Wilkinson, and this track was written by, I think it was Steve Sidwell, and it was about a 20-minute track. And obviously because we were on the pitch, we had to learn the whole thing. Like anything else, it's not in 4/4, but we were on a stage. I think there's about 20 buglers, I think there was, and we had to keep moving. But obviously, I think the part where we were moving was in 5/4. But because we've got to go down the stairs, we've got to count in 4/4 because you go down every 4 paces.
God,
so
right.
it just it was a bit of fun. But that was great. The atmosphere, even before we went on, was absolutely electric.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We're just under the seats, just waiting to go on, and you could hear everybody building up, and obviously we just saw what we were doing. It wasn't until you watch back and you see the build up with the opening footage that goes with it, and it was wow. But yeah, that was probably the most best things I've done for getting a buzz type of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to be said for doing your training. I mean, some of the best musicians I've worked with are ex-military players. They've had a proper sort of tutoring in it and put it to use, and be it marching, be it brass players, be it whatever. It's a hell of a grounding, isn't it?
It does. Well,
it's a career, and never mind a grounding, but you know what I mean.
It gives you the discipline as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's making sure you got your kit ready for the gig, you've checked it, or whether it's just making sure you turn up early and you're not just getting there on time or late. It's that preparation side of it and time management and stuff like that. So. And
the thing is, once you leave, you've still got all of those skills to take to something else.
Yeah, there's a lot
of which we'll get into in a minute.
Yeah, there's a lot of transferable skills, and you don't realise when you're doing it because you're just in your day-to-day life. You're getting your rig ready. You're going to do a gig. You come back and you go to sleep. You prepare for the next one, and it's just like it is just a job, but you don't realise the skills you're picking up on this incredible journey.
Yeah, and a good attitude with it. I'd imagine. Well, I'd hope.
Yeah, because the majority of the people, especially in any of the band services, you know what you're getting into the majority of the time. So it's going to be a long day, or you've got rehearsals at 4:00 in the morning in the centre of London, or whatever the reason may be. You know what to expect. So
yeah, oh, that's good. So when did you actually leave then?
I joined in September '97 and left in September 19.
Oh, right, okay. So. Wow. So I'm guessing that you've kind of combined BDC and the Marines to a certain extent. Do you have to do that at some point?
Yeah, so obviously we started the drum company in 2015, so I was still in. And I had some medical issues, so I got Crohn's disease, so I ended up having to take some time out of work.
Right.
I could still do everything I needed to do, but I just couldn't do my job. Yeah. So I got another job within the Marines while I was doing stuff. But in that time, I was able to spend a lot of time building up BDC and all the rest of it. And then once I'd sorted, all my medical issues out, I went back into the job.
Yeah.
And then obviously I just basically left on a Saturday night, the Royal Marines, and then started BDC on the Monday. So it was literally
that's the way to do it.
Yeah. So it worked. Although there was some issues, it worked really well to get the company up and running and what have you. So yeah, it was great.
Well, we'll get into that in a second, but one thing I remember, I think the first time I was aware of you was you did a monthly article in Rhythm magazine. It was quite short-lived, obviously, because unfortunately it was at the end of Rhythm's time. But I remember it was focused on marching and pipe band and various forms of that from around the world. How did you get into that? Because I really enjoyed that.
So I don't even know how that came about. I can't remember. I think it was... I think we did a NAMM show, and we spoke to some of the guys from Feature, the publishing there, and we they didn't have anything like that, and we'd got chatting. I think we'd been out for a meal and we had a couple of glasses of wine in it,
of course.
And I think that's how it came about. And said, "Do you fancy doing something?" So I said, "Yeah, all right." And, I had obviously spending 22 years in the Marines, you pick up a lot of contacts around the world, and so I just thought, let's do this. So I did it. Well, it just happened to be 12 months worth. Yeah. And then obviously it stopped. Rhythm stopped, but then Louise brought it back, and I did like another 4 before it went again. But it was great. We had the first special needs drum line. That was a really good interview to do.
Remember it.
Some of the guys from Disney. So the Chicago Bears drum line. It was just a whole range of completely different. Not just the same. It's not just military. It's not just pipe band. Different cultures from around the world, like the Fashionat in Switzerland. So there was just a whole range.
It was really good. It was interesting. Obviously, I'm a drum kit player, but it always fascinates me to read stuff about other styles and other. Yeah, well, it was good.
It was to try and give like a bit of a crossover. The idea behind it was to try and give the drum set guys an idea of what goes on in the marching arts world, but also then to try and get the marching art world to try and maybe get into the magazine, and try and build up the subscribers and stuff like that. But yeah, so we had you learned a bit about them, a bit about the instruments they used. There was what I called the coffee break challenge, so people could have a different go on something that was a little bit different. And to be fair, some of them were absolutely ninja.
Yeah, I had hair before I started trying those.
But yeah, so it was just an idea just to do something a little bit different.
It was good, and it's a shame that it's not a thing anymore. But there we go. Life goes on. So let's talk BDC then. So where did your and Keith's paths first cross?
Okay, so we were both at Premier.
Right, makes sense.
I was there as like a marching brand ambassador, and Keith was there obviously because they were building all the modern classics and stuff like that. And we'd actually start working on a marching drum together. And then, so we'd been working on that, and then obviously everybody knows the story, what happened. So, and then when we started the British Drum Company up, we just then carried on where we left off, basically.
Bit of a no-brainer, really.
Yeah. So there was a market there for a marching drum. And
it's pretty unusual. Well, I think it's pretty unusual for a brand new company. Normally, it would be just drum sets, snare drums, but the fact that you've gone straight in with the marching side is pretty unique, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so I had a list. All them months I was off, I'd had a big whiteboard of BDC stuff, and this is who I'd like to get on it, and this is what I want to make, and all the rest of it. And slowly, one by one, get the Royal Marines, they get ticked off. We managed to get Jim Kilpatrick, we ticked them off.
Big ticks.
Yeah, Grade 1 pipe band ticked off. So it was, and I've still got a few there to tick off because obviously there's a whole, genre of drums we've not even gone down yet. So, but that's something else in the pipe band. But yeah, it's been great. I think Keith says it, and everybody, and Al said it a few times. We're like a few Willy Wonkas with the key to the chocolate factory. So it's amazing.
I mean, it really is. I mean, it's a totally different world, the marching side of things. Yeah. It's not something I know much about at all, really. I appreciate it's different playing styles as well as different drums. So the pipe band thing, which obviously the axial, which the T-shirt there that you're wearing ever so well, is that something you've always been into anyway? No. So you've never tried it, or does it vary hugely from the styles you've done in the past?
Yeah, massively. Pipe band's never been my thing, mainly because I was never exposed to it. Mine was always military right the way through. Obviously, we go and do military tattoos and there'd be pipes and drums there. Yeah. But they were always on first, so we never saw them, and we'd see them on the finale when obviously they play Amazing Grace or Magazine or whatever the piece may be. So I wasn't really exposed until about quite late on. I'd say probably about 2010. Obviously, I knew about pipe bands and I had heard them, but never really got into it. And we did the Basel tattoo in Switzerland, and there's a piper called, I think his name was Stuart Sampson, and I just thought, wow, that sounds amazing. He was playing for the Highland Dancers, and he played. I just thought, that's incredible. And obviously, then when we brought Jim on and all the rest of it, and we started the British Drum Company, I had to do some research and do my homework and everything. But yeah, I mean, there's some amazing pipe band drummers out there and some incredible pipers as well. Yeah.
So do you, as far, obviously the axial speaks for itself, and I was lucky enough, I actually heard Jim and Rachel play the weekend just gone. Obviously this will be out a little bit later on, so it won't make a lot of sense, but the drums sounded phenomenal, and they're quite different sounding to a lot of drums, aren't they? The pipe band drums.
Yeah, I mean, it's the look as well. That's really different, and the reason for that is, if you watch any drum corps in America, they're all using the same cage system. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's Yamaha, Mapex. Everybody's drum looks the same. So we wanted a drum that when on the pipe band field, people know, well, that's a British Drum Company drum. They can see it from a mile off. That was the whole reasoning behind it. And we were able to establish that because Jim wanted 12 lugs on the top and 8 on the bottom, just to allow a bit more resonance and get that snare wire to sing. So there's not as many holding it tight. So then obviously we only had 8 points of contact. So then that allowed us to build the X-frame, which then gives us that certain sort of futuristic look that we've got.
Because it's definitely futuristic, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
really cool, isn't it? I have to say.
Yeah, it is different, and it has worked in our favour. Definitely, people see the drums and know exactly whose they are.
Yeah, absolutely. But they sounded amazing. And do you get involved in the design process as well with them? Do you get quite heavily into it?
We all sit around predominantly British Drum Company's built up on Facebook Messenger when we first started. Okay, we didn't really meet. It was all backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. But doing the marching drums, that was slightly different. We'd get Jim down and we'd have a chat and we'd mock them up. And I must admit, when we mocked this one up, people were like, "I'm not too sure."
What, from the look of it or from the sound?
No, from the look of it, it was a bit.
It's not traditional, is it? That's for sure.
I don't know about this, but the more you look at it, you just think it's actually pretty cool. To be fair,
very.
So it grew on us really quickly, but that initial look, we just went, "Well, I'm not too sure." But no, it worked well, and it, like I said, does what it says on the tin. You get really good sound out of it, and it's the mechanics of it are really easily, really easy. So there's nothing.
I mean, I don't quite understand because I know some drums vary. Is there just snares underneath the resonant head, or is there snares under the top head as well?
Both. So it's a twin snare, both fixed.
Okay.
Compared to the regimental series where they have parallel action snares, so you can drop them both on and off. But pipe band is fixed.
Right. Okay. Wow. Well, honestly, I was stunned with the sound, and I spoke to Jim and Rachel after, and they, well, equally, as you know.
Yeah.
But it must be nice. I mean, let's be honest, they don't come any bigger and better than Jim, do they? To have him, as an ambassador for your drums,
he's the most
it's
famous
incredible.
drum in the world.
Yeah.
And Jim does what he does. He travels around the world. He gives clinics, master classes, and he's the perfect ambassador for the pipe band world. And we have got a lot of our artists on in the roster as well, and they're doing an amazing job. Rachel and Stevie and Gareth and all the others. We've picked up a lot of high class artists in such a short space of time. The company's the marching division's only been going since 2019. So we launched the regimental series with the Royal Marines, the Royal Albert Hall, and then in August we launched the Axial at the World Pipe Band Championships with Jim, and then obviously COVID hit. So we had this massive build up and then COVID hit. So to keep on bringing in these these Grade 1 bands, because we just signed Scottish Power with Jake. And obviously we've got the Marines and the Irish Guards, and so we're still bringing in all this high class. I mean,
the Marines is huge, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, and people probably think, well, that's because you win. I physically did not go after the Marines. I purposely stopped away.
I understand that, yeah,
because I just thought, well, I didn't want to sort of push the boat, so I just left them and I concentrated on the Guards. If I'm being completely honest, because if you want a picture. If you think about London, it's guardsmen with bearskins, bearskins and red tunics. So that was the sort of image I was going for. But it just happens that the Marines said, "Look, we're looking for new drums." So that came about first. So what better ambassador to have launch your drums than the core drums of His Majesty's Royal Marines as it is now.
Yeah, of course. So. Just phenomenal. And obviously, for those drums, were they? Obviously, they've always played great drums. There's, nobody's saying this is better or this is, Did you have to adapt them much, or did you change much?
No, we sort of worked with the Marines.
Yeah.
In fact, the lever on the side, the dragon tooth lever, that was designed by Russ Pinnock, one of our marching artists.
Wow. Okay.
He had an idea for it because we had a lot of designs and we had a lot of prototypes as well. We spent a lot of money prototyping, and some things didn't work, some things did, and we just kept changing it until we got what we had and given to the Marines, and then. Over the course of the time, this is what we do. We don't just say, right, that's the drum, it's done. We're constantly innovating and making sure can we get it lighter without affecting the sound or the quality and stuff like that. So we're constantly working on the R&D of all our drums.
Sure.
So we then recently changed the top snare mechanism. We've made it even easier to use and nice and slicker, lighter.
Yeah.
So all the snare mechs are all made in Scotland for the Axial series and the Regimental series.
Right, okay.
So, I think it's something like 90% of the drum or 94% of the drums made in the UK.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
So you can't go wrong with that, can you? So
no, I mean, and I'm guessing weight must be a big factor because you're wearing that drum for, well, you'll know, for an awful long time.
Yeah, I mean, you can be wearing it from 10 minutes up to 4 hours, know, and because it's not centered on a harness like the pipe band, it's over across your shoulder.
Yeah.
So, you can feel it just digging in, and it, your shoulder does drop. And you see, people who've been in the Royal Marines for 20 years, and they stand up straight, and the shoulders like this. It does happen.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But so we keep them as light as possible, as long as it doesn't affect the quality or the sound or anything like that. Once you start doing that, then it's not the drum you want. Then
no, of course, no, I totally understand that, but. It's just incredible to see the Marine. It must be thrilling for you.
Yeah, I mean, bear in mind, like I said, we've only been going since 19. Obviously, we've had COVID. We've had 3 years or whatever it is of nothing happening. And then to have your drums, are going to be used at the coronation. And unfortunately, we used at the Duke's funeral and the Queen's funeral. But, it's the fact that we were there to be able to offer our drums at these,
absolutely
auspicious occasions. So...
And it was nice to hear the drums firsthand at the UK Drum Show. When was that now? Was it April last year, wasn't it?
Last year, yeah.
I mean, that was a stroke of genius, that, I think. I'm sure you had something to do with that.
Well, I did, and it made me laugh because the guys went, oh, what are we doing this drum show for? It's not our audience. I went, it will be,
Drums!
You're exposing a whole load of people who wouldn't have seen you.
Yeah.
It would be great. But it just happened to be that I was in America at the time, in DC of all places.
Oops.
So I'd organised all this and I wasn't even there. But no, I think the guys had a great time, and I think they walked away with pads and sticks and God knows whatever else they were given. But yeah, they really enjoyed it.
It was quite a statement, though, wasn't it? It was just amazing to see, and it drew a massive crowd as well.
Yeah, we tend to find, even though we go to drum sets, we do take the marching drums and we'll take the mannequins with the uniforms on, and it brings people in to have a look and see what it is.
It is. I think it's pretty unique, and the fact that you've done it pretty much from the beginning. I mean, I'm sure, like everything else, there's always something new coming out, and I'm sure there's things in the pipeline now, which obviously you're not going to talk about, but you don't rest on your laurels here at BDC.
No, I mean, like I said, we do try and keep pushing things, and if there's, because technology is changing all the time, so if we can adopt that in some of our manufacturing processes, then why not? But it's a busy time for the marching side division. We've got new drums for the Marines, so they're on. I think they're on about the third lot of drums now. So this is changing because of the crest.
Oh, of course.
Because also you used to have the Queen Elizabeth cipher.
Yeah.
So now it's changing to Charles III. So that means that's all got to change.
That's huge, isn't it? Of course, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So because of how we used to do the old drums, we used to lacquer over them. You can't replace it. You can't put a wrap on it because obviously that expands the width of the shell. It gives it a bigger shell. So there's a good chance the head's going to go on it. So yeah, it's a new set of drums. So we got them to go through. Obviously timelines. I don't know when this is going out, but they've got to be ready for the coronation. So, but that's going to be great, the coronation. We've got British Drum Company drums. It's nice to know that the stuff being used is made in the UK. So
it's British Drum Company, and it's nice. The name stands up now, and there's no one can argue and say, well, this is outsourced or what have you. Everything is. I mean, and the joy that I get from just wandering into the factory, because I know it's quite hard to believe that we're in the middle of a factory, but we really are, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
And it's just amazing that the love and attention that goes into everything that you see in there.
Yeah, I mean, I try and bring as many people into the factory for a tour as possible because, once you get them through the door, they understand. Because obviously our drums, they're not the cheapest drums. Nope. They are a little bit more expensive than other people's, but once you get them in, they understand that. Yeah. They understand, they're cutting the plies down by hand and they're trimming the tiny bits off and they're clicking. Once they see that, they fully get it. And, they buy into it and they go, oh, it's worth the money. I understand why, they're a little bit more expensive. And
it's like going to IKEA or some, high-end furniture shop, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. So, ideally, I try and bring, the Cora drums up. We had the Royal Marines in the other day. So they have a training course for the senior members, promotional course. That happens this time every year. So we had them come up. But they also brought up their newest recruits. So the idea of bringing the newest recruits in, because... I did it myself, when I was in. You're going to do a gig down the road, the bus turns up, you don't even put it in a case, you just throw your drum underneath, you get out the other end, and obviously, that's not what you should be doing.
No.
And I'm guilty of it more than the next man. So the idea now is when you bring the new recruits in, you give them that education, that look, you can't just do that, look after your kit, it needs to last, So we do that every year, and it so that's, obviously you've got the people who've been in who probably won't do that, who will just throw it under, but over the course of time, they'll leave, and then the new ones will have that education where, look after your kit and they'll look after you.
So when you're in the Marines or whichever military band it might be, your drum, you use the same drum every time, would you?
Yeah, so you join up, and then you get issued all your kit, and all the drums are serial numbered, and same as the bugle and whatever instrument you play, and that's it. It's yours for your
responsibility.
Yeah. So you want to look after it because over the course of time, it is going to, get knocks from whatever. You just never know. You could be marching down a parade and you get knocked by a car, or it happens. Or people with cameras. It happens all the time. So you just need to look after it.
Of course. So, as far as highlights with BDC, what has there been any particular highlights so far over the last?
I think
5 or 6 years, whatever.
I think the two main highlights for me has got to be the launches.
Yeah.
We've gone from not having any marching drums to launching them at the Royal Albert Hall with the Marines in front of Prince Harry at the time, because he was the Commandant General of the Royal Marines, and then obviously the World Pipe Bands with Jim. We spent a lot of years just pushing the brand out. And then people. Yeah, the marching drums are coming. It seemed like a long time and it wasn't a long time.
No.
From saying we're going to have a marching division right the way through to, it was about 4 years.
Yeah.
But 4 years is not a long time to completely come up with a brand new drum. And it wasn't just a drum; it was a whole series of drums. You got your tenors and your basses, And then the same when it comes to the actual series as well. It's
Amazing. Wow.
So yeah, I'd say that they were the two highlights. But I did get to travel. Go to NAMM show and so yeah. But we're looking at doing some more trade shows within the marching world. So I think our biggest trade show is got to be the World Pipe Band Championships. You get hundreds and hundreds of bands from all over the world.
Is that in Scotland?
Yeah, it's in Glasgow.
Right. Okay.
So you get them all converging on Glasgow Green, and it's great. You get to chat to people that you wouldn't normally chat to.
So there's a chance you get a lot more custom from there once they come in and try and.
Yeah, and you know what we do. We always go big and bold, don't we? So we did that this year. We had a marquee, and it was absolutely giant. It was the biggest building on the field, to be fair. Yeah. And it was just huge, and we had people coming in. Normally, it's really cold up there and raining, and that's great because it drives people in. They want to get under cover. But this year, it just happened to be a heat wave, and it was red hot, and it didn't work in our favour. But yeah, so we just go big, and just to show people, this is what we can do. We're not just we can't. It's not just one finish. We can do whatever we want to do. And that's because everything is all done here. We can stop the manufacturing process at any time and change it or what have you. So if you want your name on your drum, we can do that. Or if you want a little badge or anything, it's all possible here. It's
really interesting, isn't it? And of course, where it differs from an individual drummer coming in to say, "Oh, I want this drum kit or I want this snare drum." When you're a core of drums, they've got a match, I assume, yeah? Yeah. You're not buying one, you're buying, I don't know how many.
Yeah, I mean, that's the good thing about it. It's not, if you get a sale, generally it's not one drum, it's a few. But it's sometimes that's easier when you're making them. You're just doing the same finish all in one go.
Yeah.
Whether it's a wrap or whether it's it's a spray or whatever it is, you're doing a mass amount in one go. So it's beneficial, and it's easier because you just see them all going around the factory as a group as opposed to one individual drum.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, it can be anywhere from 5 drums up to 50 or 60 drums. So
they're the orders you want.
Yeah, definitely.
So outside of drums and marching and military, what's your thing? Have you got any time after that?
I don't really have a thing, to be honest. I don't really have any time.
I know coffee's a thing.
Yeah, so I've had to cut down because I drink too much. So I've now got a thing is I drink coffee.
He says with a coffee in his hand.
Coffee at BDC, and then I drink tea at home.
Right, okay.
So yeah, I've had to cut down, even though I've got a coffee machine. But yeah, I was drinking about 12 cups a day.
That's a problem.
Yeah. So we're on decaf at the moment upstairs because I think we're all trying to cut down.
Oh dear.
But yeah, I don't really have a thing. Obviously, I like films and movies and stuff like this, and just spending time with the family. To be honest,
yeah,
because they're getting older. There'll be a point soon where they'll just be disappearing, and so traveling as much as I can. So I'm quite lucky with that.
Well, you kind of get that with the job as well, don't you? So that's quite nice, isn't it?
I mean, I am involved in some other bits and pieces. I work with the Washington Tattoo. See, everybody's heard of the Edinburgh Tattoo. So we're putting one on in Washington, DC. It's a prime place to be putting on a ceremonial tattoo. So that's in the pipeline at the moment. So
what's your involvement with that then? Is it in organising it?
So they got me on as a consultant, as a strategy advisor, basically down to the experience I've had performing all the different tattoos all over the world. And we do a podcast on that, so I'm one of the hosts for the podcast on the Washington Tattoo, and we just bring people in from all walks of life, whether it's a musical side of it or whether it's a charity side or a veteran side, and we just tell our story and tell their story at the same time.
Oh, amazing, good. So you're pretty busy then, all in.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's like, you mentioned your family at home. This is like a family here. It's like second family here, isn't it?
It is. I left the Marines, and obviously you spend 22 years with people, and then as soon as you leave, you don't hear from them again.
No.
Because you're at the pitch, and it's not their fault. It's not your fault.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah. But then since joining the British Drum Company, I've now got another family, and you've got trade shows, and you see Ben from Didario or wherever, and it's just great to, it is like another family, and it's quite cool, to be honest.
Absolutely. No, amazing. Well, look, nice one, Stu. It's been a pleasure. You've got the long journey back upstairs to the office now. Hope you enjoyed that on the sofa with our very own Stu Warmington. Once again, don't forget to please check out all of our social media. You will find the links in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, BDC TV. Hope you enjoyed. See you soon.